Hi, I'm Dave Vickers and welcome to the Photo Show. I'm going to do another Photoshop tutorial today, and what I'm going to look at today is a technique that was popularised a few years ago by photographers like Dave Hill and Jill Greenberg, which was giving their images a sort of a hyper-realistic look. We're concentrating more on sort of the Dave Hill kind of look here. If you look at his work, they were always very filmic, almost as if they were stills from a movie. Normally action shots and stuff like that. So I've picked a shot that has a lot of action here. It was taken from a wrestling event a few years ago. There's a few other YouTube tutorials on getting the Dave Hill effect, but I've never been entirely convinced that they were as close to what the Dave Hill stuff looked like as possible. So I thought I'd give it a go and see what kind of look we can achieve using this image here. So the first thing I'm going to do is, as I said, this image was taken at a wrestling show a few years ago, and we've got a lot of action going on. There's a lot of facial expressions. We've got a lot of action happening here. And this image has already been worked on, so I'm going to use this as the base image and then work from there to achieve the effect we're looking for. Now, the Dave Hill look it's very stylized. It's a very hyper-realistic look, almost as if it's airbrushed. So there's a few techniques I'm going to try and employ here to try and give that kind of look to this image. First thing I'm going to do with this image is give it use a skin softening technique called frequency separation. I've got another video that goes into more detail of how to do this, but I'll do a quick run through now of just how I'm going to make the skin of everyone here look soft. And as you can see, there's a lot of skin, so let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is make 3 copies of my background layer. So Control and J again, and Control and J again. Now I'm going to turn off the top layers here, and I'm going to work on the first layer here. And what I'm going to do with this layer, in fact I'm going to rename it as medium. And if you come up to your filter menu here, in the drop down menu you've got noise, and in the drop down menu from that you've got median. So we'll click that, and as you can see here, what the median does, if I turn the preview off, it actually blurs the skin. If you push it up there, it's making it almost like a paint effect on it, and it's blurring out the skin. So what we're looking for here is for it to show tones and colour, but no real texture. So I'll just keep moving it until we get a smoothed out look to the skin. I'm going to leave it about 8. It's probably more than I would do normally, but you can see later on we can adjust this and make the effect less prominent. So we'll click OK with that. So that's our median layer. The next layer up here we're going to do, I'm going to rename that high pass. And we'll come up again to our filter menu here, and at the bottom here we've got other, and from the drop down of that we have high pass. And the high pass filter, you may have seen me use this before, it turns the layer into a 50% grey, and what we're looking for here is it to give us texture to the skin. So basically what we're doing is this is called frequency separation. So we're using the median layer to give us our tones and colours, and we're using our high pass layer to give us our texture. Now again, I'll probably do this higher than I would normally. I normally don't like seeing this fringing around the outside here, but for this image I'm going to click OK. And you can see here, obviously, at the moment, this is doing the image no favours at all. So what we need to do with our high pass layer is change the blending mode. So you can see at the top here, the blending mode is normal. If I do the click down, and we want to click it to overlay. Right, so now we're getting quite a weird looking image. So let's put the top layer back in again. And now we're back to our original image again. And I'm going to rename this as mask. And as the name suggests, what I want to do on this layer is put a layer mask on it. So let's click the layer mask. So right, so now we've got 4 layers. We've got our original background, we have our median layer, which is giving the tones to the skin and blurring everything else out. We have our high pass layer, which is going to give the texture to the skin, and we have our mask layer over the top. So the next thing I'm going to do is use the mask layer here to soften the skin. So there's a number of ways of doing this. what I like to do is turn off all of the layers underneath. So I've turned off all of the layers underneath, and now I'm going to pick my brush tool. So press B on the keyboard, and I want my foreground colour to be black and my background colour to be white, because we've got a white mask fill here. And what I'm going to do is start to use the layer mask on the skin itself. And because I've turned the background layers off, you can see that what I'm seeing now is the checkerboard effect from Photoshop showing that there's no information. So this is going to show me exactly where I'm erasing out. If I turn those layers back on underneath and do it again, it's actually quite difficult to see what areas you've already covered. So I'm going to suggest turn off the bottom layers so you get this checkerboard effect, and then you can see exactly where you're masking out the skin. Now I'm going to leave areas like the tattoo that need detail. If we blur the tattoo out, it's going to look blurry. So let's just do that. So what I'm going to basically do now is go around this entire image and mask out all of the skin. And because this has got a lot of skin in it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll speed this up, and we'll come back when I've masked the skin out completely. So let me get on with that, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so that took longer than I expected, but there we go. I've now masked out all of the skin in the areas of the photo where I want it to have the blurring effect on it. I've kept certain areas. I've kept the hair, so we don't want the blurring on that. I've kept the tattoos. I've kept some of the hairs on the arm. I've kept mouths and all that really clear, and obviously the clothing as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start to add those layers back in underneath. So if I add the original layer back in, now we're looking exactly the same as the original start. Let's add the median layer back in. And you can see there immediately that it's blurred the skin and given a soft look to the skin all the way through. And now if we add the high pass filter in as well, you can see now that we're adding some of the texture back in. If you look around, if I zoom in a little bit, if you look around the chin area here as I add the high pass filter back in, there we go, we're getting some of the texture and detail back in as well, but we've still got that skin smoothing look as well. Now we can obviously adjust any of these. If we wanted to lower the amount of the blurring, we could use the opacity here and lower that down. But for this I'm going to keep it up at 100%. I might lower the high pass sharpening down a little bit as well. Okay, so now we've got our skin softened. Let's merge these down. I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to Shift Control E and just merge those layers down into one. So now we've got our original photo and the blurred skin layer. Next thing I want to do is add a little bit of detail and form to this, which is a little bit another one of the sort of areas of the Dave Hill effect. And this is kind of where this effect will really start to take hold. And what we're going to do is we're going to use dodging and burning. So to dodge and burn, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a blank layer over the top of this. So the little folded paper icon, and I've now got a blank layer at the top here. So what I'm going to do now is go to Edit at the top here. And we're going to fill, and we've got a lot of options here, foreground colour and the like. If you do the drop down, one of the options here is 50% grey. So I'm going to click OK, and that's now filled that layer with 50% grey. But again, obviously now we can't see any of the original image, so we need to change our blending mode up here. The blending mode's on normal, so again I'm going to change it to overlay. And now because it's 50% grey, it's having no direct effect on the image. And what we're going to use this layer for is for dodging and burning. So I'm going to call this dodge and burn. And what dodge and burn is going to allow us to do is to bring out the highlights and the shadows to give the image more definition. So we're going to start by using the dodge tool. If you come down to your toolbar here, the dodge tool is this little one, looks like a little paddle And these symbols actually come from days of the darkroom. If you were printing in a darkroom, if you wanted to prevent the light from affecting the printed image and give a lighter area, you would use a paddle or something similar to block the light from reaching the paper. And the burn tool, we'll see in a minute, is a little hand symbol which used to be used for controlling a section of light to make shadows more visible or more noticeable within a print. So we're going to use the dodge and burn tool. So we've got our dodge tool here. I've set the exposure low, it's to 9%, so it's not going to have a massive effect on first pass. But what you can do is you can start to use this to build up your image as you go. So because this is the dodge tool, we're looking to make the highlights lighter. So anywhere we have highlights, I'm going to start to just gently brush the dodge tool on the highlights. And you can see there that it's starting to lighten up those areas. And this is going to help us pull out more definition within the image. So anything that's nice and light, give it a touch with the dodge tool, just to make it more so. You can see here, sort of on muscle definition, you've got there's a lighter part and a darker part, and what we want to do is we want to lighten up the lighter part and darken up the darker part, which will give more definition as we're going along. So if I carry on doing this for the time being, and it doesn't just have to be on the skin, you can see on anything where we've got the light reflecting off of the turnbuckle here, you can add that in as well. Clothing, lighten a bit of that up as well. So there we go. I've just gone around quickly and done some of the highlights. If I turn that on and off now, you can see how it punches the highlights in and gets them much brighter. If I turn the other layers off underneath, so you can just see, that's our dodge and burn layer. And basically what it's doing is it's lightened up all the areas that I've stroked. So let's go back over that. Now I'm going to switch to the burn tool. So if we switch there, next one down is the burn tool, which is the little hand symbol. And I've set this at a lower exposure. This is set at 6%, whereas the dodge tool I had at 9%, just because the burn tool tends to have a slightly harsher effect. So now what we're going to do is the opposite to what we did with the dodge tool, is we're going to burn in a lot of the shadow areas. So if we go for this guy's chin area there, his cheekbones, and we'll start to do all of the darker areas in the image. And you can start to see now that by now introducing the shadow along with the highlights that we burnt in with the dodge tool, that it's starting to give much more definition. And it's up to you. It's really up to you sort of what extent you take this to. But because we're looking for an unreal looking image, we're attempting to make this look almost like it's an airbrushed image. So let's have a look where we are now. So let's turn the dodge and burn layer off. So that's where we were before with just the skin softening. Now if we add the dodge and burn layer back in, you can see now we're starting to get a lot more definition, that the image is starting to pop a bit more. If you want this to be an even stronger effect, you can duplicate that layer. So Control and J again. And there we go. Now we're getting something really hyper realistic. That's with the single dodge and burn layer, that's with the double dodge and burn layer. And because they're on separate layers, you can always just lower the opacity if you want to sort of, dial this in to how you want. But for now, because we're going for a really over the top look, let's leave it as that. Okay, so now let's merge those down. So now let's see where we've got so far. That was our original image. And now you can see we've made quite a difference. We're starting to get all of the skin is smoothed out. It's starting to get quite an airbrushed kind. Right, so I feel looking at this is slightly oversaturated now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to desaturate it slightly, using a vibrancy layer. So let's drop the saturation down a touch. You see if we bring that all the way down, it become a monochrome image. So let's dial it up. Brought the saturation down by about -12 there. And you can see it's taken a lot of that orange out of it, and we're getting a much better look now. So we're getting really close now. I mean, from where we started, let's go back to our original image. That's what it looked like when we started. Perfectly fine photograph, nothing wrong with that. But I think now we've added a lot more drama, a lot more effects to the entire thing. So I've copied that layer. Some other things within Photoshop you can try to sort of help enhance this effect. Let's try one now. So I've copied that layer there. Let's come across to image, in adjustments, and down here we've got an area called shadows and highlights. And what we can do with this, I mean, out of the box, it's normally, when it comes up, I never like the effect. It's always pushed too much. But we'll start playing with the sliders here. If we bring the shadows slider down, I'm going to drop the tone down as well, a touch there. You can play with the radius as well. And then we've got a highlights one here, which will cut down on our highlights. So let's do that. The shadows and highlights, I wouldn't recommend it using it on photos that you just want to look as a standard way, because it does have some, if you really start cranking these sliders, it has some really odd effects over the image. But we can do that. Let's do that a bit more. Like about there. You've got color correction here because you can see that it's added a bit of a color cast in. So I'm going to drop the color correction back down, something like that, and we can add a mid-tone contrast to the entire thing. Click OK, and you can see now that it's pumping a lot of detail back into sort of some areas. If you look around this area here, it's quite dark and shadowed. With that, that's pulled a bit out. And again, because it's a separate layer, you can adjust the opacity to get the kind of look you want. So there we go. Let's see where we started off. That was our original image. That's now where we've applied all of the effects to it. We've got the skin softening. We've used the dodge and burn to really highlight stuff, and we've used the highlights and shadows adjustments just to bring out a bit more detail as well. So I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to merge those down again. And the last thing I'm going to do is do another high pass sharpening over the top of it to really start to pull out some details there. So Control and J, filter, other, high pass. And again, I'm going to go over the top with this more than I would normally. I'm going to change that to overlay. And again, you can adjust the strength of this by using your opacity slider up here. We'll bring it down just a touch more. Let's merge those down. And I'm going to call that done. So what we've done here is we've turned what was a standard kind of action shot here. Nothing wrong with the photo. I was perfectly happy with it. But we've added a bit of drama. We've made it look a little bit more airbrushed, a little bit more filmic. We've highlighted out the muscle tone and stuff like that. So basically that's a rundown of how you do what used to be called the Dave Hill effect. It's really a hyper-realistic image look. But you can apply that to lots of different images. If you look at, like I said, look at the stuff like Dave Hill's work. Look at stuff by Jill Geenberg as well. She does a lot of stuff with children. It's a different type of image, but there's similar techniques used to get the look that they're going for. So for now, I hope that's been helpful. I'm Dave Vickers. This is The Photo Show. Thanks for watching. See you next time.